Welcome to the Hoops Factory TV podcast. I'm Jason O'Neill, as always, with my man Aubrey Gray. If you're new to the channel, Hoops Factory TV is your go-to place for some of the best interviews with prep basketball players from all across the country. We got a special guest today, David Vuong of the Slam and Jam Media Company, as well as BringYourGameLA event. And then, so last topic, recently, KG made some comments that 20 years ago, that players from 20 years ago would not be able to play in today's league. Obviously, I think there was a little hyperbole in his comments. I don't think he was talking specifics. But me, I'm always the jerk who likes to take things literally. Is there a literal translation that you could see? DV, I know you're a little bit younger than both myself and Aubrey. We're into our 40s now. So we're going to be the ones saying, get off our lawn whenever you start trying to talk about the players from yesteryear. But how did you receive those comments as somebody who obviously has a little bit more of a closer connection to today's basketball? How would you feel about the players from 20 years ago trying to compete against guys in today's league?
Yeah, it goes both ways, man. So I grew up watching basketball in the 90s. So, definitely like first off the bat, like guys like Charles Oakley, Antonio, and Dale Davis, they wouldn't survive in today's league. Like they wouldn't be, because I think some of those guys made like 7, 8, 9 mil in their heyday. Those guys would not be getting those contracts today. They'd probably be minimum guys if they were lucky. Because today's game is so different. If you can't shoot the ball, you're almost worthless now. And then vice versa, though, a lot of guys in today's game, they'd be considered tweeners back then. When Ed O'Bannon was coming into the league, people say he was too small to play power forward and didn't have the skill set enough to play play small forward. And then a lot of these kids would kind of be stuck in that same situation where today they're like versatile, like Andre Iguodala comes to mind. Like, I don't know how his skill, he might have been in the same situation O'Bannon was in back then. A lot of these guys where you say they're like in between a shooting guard, point guard position right now, like maybe like a Jalen Green almost, like back then they probably would have known to put him at point guard or shooting guard and probably forced him into a specific role. So, it goes both ways. Some guys definitely that made it back then wouldn't make it today. And some guys who are thriving today definitely would not make it back then.
Aubrey, how do you feel on that topic?
Oh no, I feel it is a vice versa thing because it's apples to oranges. So when you're talking about today and yesteryear, yesteryear was physicality. So the Lane Beers, as David mentioned, the Dale Davises, the Xavier McDaniels, these type of people. The league was a different league. It was more about intimidation. It was more about physicality. So today, there's obviously more money at hand, so they can't let the players be exposed to the type of injuries that even a Michael Jordan was exposed to throughout his career. You would never think about trying to, take down LeBron James out of the air at this point or before, just because so much of the league hinges on the personalities. So that wasn't a component as it is today. So you have to fixture in all these things, and then you kind of get to understand, oh, okay, this is who can be a universal player that could play in any era, or this is a guy where he was a guy who played in the times, that was just a guy who, filled the need, maybe a Craig Hodges or a Kiki Vandeweghe, somebody where the era is just kind of a Bill Bradley, who was a great player, but I don't think a Bill Bradley is on any teams today, but he's a great role player and he's an NBA champion, but it's a circumstance of the team they were on and the era that they play in.
So yeah, my face is going crazy over here because I can't disagree more. So again, I'm the literal one. 20 years ago, the Lakers won the championship. 2000, the 2000 Lakers. I'll name you their starting five. I can do it off the top of my head. Shaq at the 5. Shaq, I tell you, will play in any league, and he's going to demand a double team. Like, there's not one guy who's ever been born on the face of the planet who's going to take Shaq's single in the post. So we have Shaq at the 5. He's going to go against what? AD? We'll go last year's Laker team, which I actually think is better than this year's Laker team. He's going against Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. I'll take 20 years ago. Before 20 years ago was Ho Grant. Now you could say Ho Grant was slow. Ho Grant was slow 20 years ago. 20 years ago, Ho Grant was getting beat off the dribble. So you telling me that Ho Grant's going to get beat off the dribble by AD? That's fine. That happened all the time. So yes, you got AD against Ho Grant. You got Rick Fox going up against who was the Lakers three last year? Danny Green, KCP, whoever they started at the three. But really, what they're going to end up doing is they're going to put Rick Fox on LeBron James. And yeah, Rick Fox is going to get torched by LeBron James, but everybody gets torched by LeBron James. And then we're going to go Kobe. And now we got Kobe 20 years ago. And again, if you're telling me Kobe couldn't play in the league 20 years in today's league, like he was up there like 3 years ago, limping around. 5 years ago, he was out there limping around and he scored 60. So I'm definitely going to say that a player from 20 years ago and Kobe Bryant could play in today's league when 5 years ago he was limping around and got 60 on his last game. And then the point guard was Ron Harper versus last year's Lakers point guard was Rondo. Give it Rondo, even though he didn't start. But yes, I would say in that environment, I'd probably take the 20-year ago Lakers team versus last year's Lakers team. So not only would I say that the whole team could play in today's league, I'd say not only would they play in today's league, they probably go and win the championship based on the fact that they could beat last year's team.
I think just like going back to the history of basketball, I think like 70s, 80s, it looked like every team just had like one big man. And then I think like the 90s, that's when they realized all these guys like Jordan was slashing so much of the rim. They decided the power forward had to be big too. So next thing you know, power forwards were 6'10, 6'11. And then to put that next to your 7-footer, I think the league was just adjusting to guarding guys like Michael that were just flying in at the rim and you couldn't stop them. I think Michael Jordan had a huge effect on how teams were building back then. And then now I would say it's like a Steph Curry effect because a guy like Steph Curry has changed the league so much, jacking up all those threes that now teams are like, the league had to evolve again. Like, I don't need these two giant slow guys in the paint. Like I need to get a little smaller. I need guys that could shoot. So it's kind of like get certain guys just evolve the league so much that you kind of have to adjust the league based off of what they do because they completely revolutionized the game.
And while I agree with you, and again, I think what KG was trying to say is the league's in a good place. And I don't mean to try and say that the league is not in a good place. Like especially like if you look at like 10 years ago, they were just drafting so many younger players that the average age of the league, I think, was like 26, 27. And now if you look at the top tier teams in the league, they all have like 3 guys over 30. Like no playoff team has like under 3 guys under 30. So yeah, I would agree. But just a couple of years ago, the Raptors won the championship, and they weren't a 3-point shooting team. And yes, I understand there was injuries. KD blew out his ACL and wasn't playing. But that was a team that wasn't necessarily the kind of the new version of the team. That was very much a throwback team with Marc Gasol starting at center and Kawhi and you know what I mean, those type of guys. Where it still was basketball kind of playing like when you say the 90s. And I would agree that if you try to go back too far, you're going to lose that argument that the guys just weren't athletic enough at a certain point. But I do agree with what you're saying, where kind of around the 90s and the Jordification of the league, and those guys really starting in that era could kind of play throughout going through.
Even looking at that Raptors team, that team was built. I felt like it was built just for Kawhi because Gasol could shoot the ball, and then you had Ibaka who could shoot the ball. Kawhi likes to operate in the mid-range, so having a whole team that could shoot just clears out so much spacing for him that he is able to operate in that mid-range, kind of that area he likes. That's why when you saw last year's Clipper team, when you had like Zubac and Harrell inside, it just jacked up the spacing for him. Like
right, yeah.
Instead of having the whole mid-range open, you had guys just showing and double teaming him, and those other guys, they couldn't shoot a jump shot. So when you have a guy like Kawhi, you definitely need someone that could shoot at the 4. That's why this year's Clipper team, you got guys like Ibaka, you got there's just shooters everywhere. Marcus Morris, the Clippers have one of the top 3-point shooting percentages in the leagues, and I think they're shooting something crazy like 60% from the corner three too. Man, I can't wait for can't wait for the playoffs this year.
And I don't want to sit on that Clipper team. That Clipper team was up 3-1. Like that was still a damn good Clipper team. Like whatever happened in that week with Paul George in his head and whatever, like that team was still like with whatever spacing issues they had. Like that was a damn good team. Like I thought, I was not sure the Lakers would have beat them had they not fallen apart against the Nuggets. So